What's up, guys? Welcome to Sleepy Cinephile tonight. We're diving into a gripping tale inspired by The Hunger Games, where hope flickers like a spark in a world choked by ash. Picture a district carved from coal and grit, where every dawn feels like a dare to survive. We'll walk alongside a young woman, fierce as a storm, as she faces a trial that could break her or forge her into something greater. If I had to live in a place this tough, I'd probably just barter my last loaf of bread for a one-way ticket out sound like a plan. So, before you dive in, hit that like button and subscribe. It's the spark that keeps us crafting epic movie stories. Drop a comment with your favorite film, and we'll weave it into a future video. Now, settle in, let the world fade, and step into this tale with us. The dawn breaks over the district with a dull, gray glow, like light filtered through a miner's lungs. You stand at the edge of a ramshackle street, where houses slump against each other, their wooden bones creaking under the weight of years. The air bites with the tang of coal dust, sharp enough to coat your throat, and a faint chill seeps through your worn coat, tugging at your skin. Around you, the world feels caged, hemmed in by a towering fence that hums with a low, electric pulse, a warning to stay put, to bow low. Kids with smudged cheeks weave through the alleys, their shouts quick and brittle, like they know joy's a thief that doesn't linger. A crow caws from a sagging roof, its call echoing over the chimneys. You move down the street, your boots grinding against the gravel, each step kicking up a puff of black dust. The people here are carved from hardship miners with hands stained dark, women rationing scraps of bread, elders whispering of a city that glitters while they starve. You catch sight of a young woman slipping through the crowd, her dark braid swinging like a pendulum. Her name's Lena. Not yet a legend, just a 17-year-old with eyes that burn like kindling, carrying a burden heavier than the sacks of coal she trades. She's got a spark, the kind that says she's seen the world's teeth but refuses to flinch. You follow her, keeping your distance, as she heads toward the district's edge, where the fence looms like a judge. Lena moves with a hunter's grace, her steps silent, her gaze flicking to the fence's wire coils. You notice the way she tests the air, listening for the hum's pitch, a trick she's learned from years of slipping through the cracks. Today, the fence is silent, its power cut, a rare lapse in the city's grip. She ducks under the wire, and you follow, the grass scraping your hands, rough and cold. Beyond the fence, a forest unfolds, a sprawl of pine and birch that smells of sap and secrets. The air's cleaner here, but it doesn't loosen the knot in your chest. The one tied to the trial, everyone's whispering about a culling, a game, a spectacle to remind the district who rules. In the forest, Lena meets Tyrant, a lean figure with shadowed eyes and a quiet defiance that mirrors hers. You linger behind a cluster of brambles, their thorns catching your sleeve as they speak in low tones about the day ahead. Tyrant's voice is rough, edged with anger, tossing out plans to dodge the city's grasp run, fight anything but kneel. Lena listens, her face unreadable, but her fingers tighten on her bow, a weathered thing carved from her father's hands. They're not just allies, they're kindling waiting for a match, bound by the same hunger, the same refusal to break. You watch them hunt. Lena's arrow slicing through the air to fell a hare, its thud soft but final. Tyrant nods, a gesture that carries more weight than words. The forest hums around you, branches swaying, a stream gurgling nearby, but there's a pulse beneath it, a countdown to the trial. You kneel by the stream, its water icy against your fingers, and catch a glimpse of your reflection faint, like you're a specter in this story, here to witness, not to act. That's how it feels in this district, like you're half alive, waiting for the city's blade to fall. Lena and Torin move on, their haul 2 hares, a clutch of roots tucked into a sack. But their silence speaks louder than their hunt. The trials today, a lottery where names are drawn, and no one's spared, not even kids like Mira, Lena's younger sister who's barely 13. You trail them back to the fence, the sun climbing, casting long shadows across the moss. Lena pauses, her hand brushing a patch of wild mint, its scent sharp and fleeting. You smile, thinking how some souls are like that mint, stubborn, growing where they shouldn't. Back in the district, the streets are stirring. People trudging toward the square, their faces gray as the sky. You pass a baker's stall, the smell of burnt crusts wafting out, and spot a boy, Callan, broad-shouldered, his eyes following Lena as she moves. There's a story in that glance, one you'll unravel later, tied to a debt from years past. The square's packed when you arrive, a sea of worn coats under flapping banners. Their crimson and gold, a mockery of the district's grit. You stand at the edge, your pulse quickening as the trial's platform looms a stark wooden stage, flanked by guards in sleek uniforms, a woman from the city, her hair a tower of silver curls, steps forward, her voice dripping with false warmth. You catch Lena's eye in the crowd, her hands clenched, her gaze fixed on Mira, small and pale among the children. The anthem blares, a brassy roar, and you feel the crowd still, every breath held. This is the district, where hope's a gamble no one wins, and the trial's a chain tightening around them all. The city woman's hand hovers over a glass bowl, names folded inside like traps. You take a breath, the coal dust sharp, and wait for the first name to fall. The square in this coal-dusted district feels like a held breath, the air thick with dread as the city's anthem fades, its brassy notes swallowed by the gray sky. You stand among the crowd, pressed close to miners with calloused hands and mothers clutching threadbare shawls, their faces etched with the same resignation as the crumbling buildings around you. The wooden platform looms ahead, where the city woman, Vera Solis, her silver curls gleaming, stands like a peacock in a coal mine, her voice dripping with rehearsed cheer. Welcome to the culling, she trills, and the words land like stones. You catch Lena's gaze in the girls' section, her braid tight, her eyes sharp as flint, locked on her sister Mira, who stands among the younger kids, her small hands twisting her faded dress. The crowd is a sea of muted grays and browns, every pair of eyes fixed on the glass bowl glinting on the stage, its folded papers holding fates no one wants. You shift, the gravel crunching under your boots, and notice the kids standing rigid, like they're waiting for a whip to crack. Whispers ripple behind you, miners cursing the city under their breath, their anger a low burn against the chill. A child's cough cuts through the silence, sharp and raw, and you feel the district's pulse fear, defiance, and a stubborn will to endure. You glance at Kalen, the baker's son, in the boys' section, his broad frame tense, his eyes flicking to Lena like she's a beacon in the gloom. Vera's voice pulls you back, her hands fluttering over the bowl. For the honor of the districts, she chirps, and you want to scoff. But the fear in the air pins you in place. The square is a cage, the fences hum a distant echo, and you sense the crowd's collective dread. Every name in that bowl a spark that could ignite their world. You watch Lena, her jaw set, her hands unclenched but ready, like a bowstring waiting to snap. Mira's pale face stands out among the children, her eyes wide, and you feel Lena's focus, a silent vow to shield her. Vera's fingers pluck a paper, unfolding it with a flourish that feels like mockery. "Mira Varn," she announces, and the name hits like a spark in dry grass. You see Mira freeze, her small frame trembling, the kids around her stepping back, leaving her exposed. A murmur rolls through the crowd, low and jagged, but no one moves. You turn to Lena, and it's like watching a flame catch. Her face drains of color, then hardens, her body surging forward. "I take her place," she shouts, her voice raw but steady, slicing through the square like an arrow. The crowd gasps, and you feel the air shift, charged with shock and a flicker of awe. Mira's clinging to Lena now, her thin arms wrapped tight, sobbing, "No, Lena, please." But Lena's already easing her back, her touch firm yet gentle, whispering words you can't hear but feel a promise, a tether. You watch as Torin steps from the crowd, his dark eyes fierce, lifting Mira into his arms and carrying her away, her cries fading into the gray. Lena climbs the platform, her chin high, but you catch the tremor in her fingers, the way her eyes flick to the bowl, wary of its next draw. Vera's flustered, muttering about such fire, but you're not listening, you're watching Lena, the girl who just traded her life for her sister's, standing tall under the city's crimson banners. Vera smooths her dress, regaining her composure, and moves to the boy's bowl. You lean closer, the tension coiling like a spring. As she pulls another slip, "Kalen Holt," she calls, and you see Kalen's shoulders stiffen, a brief flinch before he strides to the stage, his face a mask of resolve. The crowd's quieter now, still reeling from Lena's stand, but you feel their eyes on him. The baker's son with a debt to Lena you're starting to sense. He joins her on the platform, and you notice the space between them not cold, but cautious, like two sparks that might flare if they touch. Gotta give it to Kalen. Stepping up like that, if I were him, I'd probably be baking extra loaves to bribe my way out, you think. A wry smile tugging at your lips. Vera raises her hands, her smile brittle. "To the glory of the culling," she proclaims, but the crowd doesn't cheer. Instead, you see a ripple of defiance, hands rising slowly, fingers pressed to lips, in a salute that mirrors the one you saw Lena earn. It's a quiet rebellion, a vow etched in the district's grit, and you feel it course through you, binding the square in something stronger than fear. You lift your hand, joining them, and for a moment, the platform isn't just a stage, it's a spark that could burn the city's lies. Vera hurries Lena and Kalen off the stage, her silver heels clicking, leading them into the stone hall behind. The crowd begins to scatter, their murmurs low, their faces heavy with what's been lost and what's been kindled. You linger, the banners flapping above, the bowl still glinting with unspoken names. Lena's choice. Kalen's steady steps. They're not just names drawn from glass anymore. They're the district's fire, and you know the city's watching, waiting to see if it'll spread. The square's dust settles as the crowd thins, their salutes still burning in your mind like embers. You linger near the stone hall, its heavy walls looming over the district like a judge's gavel. The city's banners flap above, their crimson and gold a cruel splash against the gray, and you feel the weight of the lottery, the culling, pressing down. You slip inside, your boots echoing in a dim corridor where the air smells of wax and old sorrow, sharp with the tang of coal dust that clings to everything. City guards in sleek uniforms stand rigid, their eyes cold, watching every move. You're here to witness the farewells, the last breaths of connection before Lena and Kalen are swept into the city's game. You pause outside a thick wooden door, catching the murmur of voices from within. It's Lena's room, a small space where she's granted a fleeting moment with her family. You lean closer, the wood cool against your palm, and hear Mira's voice, small but fierce. "You'll come back, Lena," she says, her words trembling with a child's faith. You ease the door open just enough to see inside. Mira's clinging to her sister, her blonde hair loose, her face streaked with tears. Lena kneels, her braid brushing Mira's shoulder. Her hands steady but her eyes raw with something deeper than fear, love, duty, a vow carved in her bones. "Keep the fire lit," Lena whispers, her voice low, like she's passing a torch. Their mother, Ilara, stands back, her face pale, her hands twisting a frayed scarf, too fragile to bridge the gap between them. You watch Lena pull Mira close, her embrace fierce, and it hits you how young they are. Mira, barely 13, and Lena, just 17, carrying a family's weight. Ilara steps forward, her voice brittle. "I'll try," she murmurs, but Lena's gaze hardens, a flicker of old wounds. "Don't fade again," she says, sharp but quiet, and you feel the sting of years unspoken. The room's air is thick, heavy with promises and regrets, and you sense Lena's strength, the spark that drove her to take Mira's place, now a shield for them both. Mira buries her face in Lena's chest, and for a moment they're just sisters, not players in the city's cruel game. You shift, the floor creaking, and Lena's eyes flick up, meeting yours for a heartbeat, her resolve like a flame that won't gutter. The guards move in, their boots heavy, signaling time's end. Mira clings tighter, but Lena eases her back, whispering something that makes Mira nod, her sobs softening. You step aside as the door opens wide, and Torin appears, his lean frame taut with anger, guiding Mira and Ilara out. His hand rests on Mira's shoulder, steadying her, and you catch his glance at Lena, a silent pact, a vow to guard what she's leaving behind. You nod back, feeling the district's pulse in that exchange, the Defiance from the square carrying forward. You move down the corridor, following the guard's clipped steps to another room where Kaelin waits. The door's ajar, and you slip inside, staying in the shadows. Colin sits on a faded bench, his broad hands clasped, his blonde hair catching the dim light from a high window. His father, a burly man with flour-dusted hands, stands before him, holding a small sack. "Some rolls," he says, his voice rough. "For the road." Kaelin takes it, his fingers brushing his father's, and you see the weight of the moment settle, a quiet love beneath the grit. His mother's there too, her face sharp, her voice cutting. "Don't shame us," she snaps, and you wince, feeling the jab. Kaelin's jaw tightens, but he nods, his eyes distant. "If I had to deal with a mom like that, I'd probably bake a whole batch of burnt bread just to make a point." You think, a wry smile tugging at your lips. Kaelin's older brother, a quieter shadow of him, lingers by the wall, his eyes downcast. You notice Kaelin's hands grip the sack tighter, like it's a tether to the district, to the debt he owes Lena, a story you're starting to piece together, tied to a loaf of bread and a hungry night years ago. His father rests a hand on Colin's shoulder, a gesture heavy with unspoken pride, and you feel the ache of a family bracing for loss. The guards step in, their presence a cold gust, and Colin stands, his face calm but his eyes carrying a storm. You watch his family leave, his mother's steps brisk, his father's head bowed, the door closing with a thud that echoes like a final note. You step back into the corridor, the air colder now, the light dimming as the day leans toward dusk. The hall feels like a pause, a breath before the city's game begins in earnest. You think of Lena's fierce embrace, Kaelin's quiet resolve, and the district's salutes, their defiance a spark that refuses to die. The guards move again, their boots ringing, escorting Lena and Kaelin toward the exit. You follow, keeping your distance, your pulse quickening. Lena walks with her head high, her braids swaying, but you see her hands clench, holding herself together. Callan's beside her, his steps steady, his eyes flicking to her, a silent question in his gaze. You reach the hall's end, where a sleek city transport waits, its chrome glinting under the fading light. The district watches from afar. Their salute's a memory that lingers like coal dust on your skin. Lena and Callan are stepping into a world that breaks the defiant, but you sense their spark, kindled in the square, ready to flare against the city's chains. The stone hall's heavy doors thud shut, sealing the district's dust behind you as you follow Lena and Kaelin into the fading light. A sleek city transport idles outside, its polished surface gleaming like a blade under the dusk, a stark contrast to the district's crumbling streets. Lena's braid swings as she steps forward, her eyes sharp, scanning the vehicle like it's a trap. Callan's beside her, his broad frame tense, the sack of rolls from his father clutched tight. You slip into the shadows of the transport as it glides away, the hum of its engine swallowing the district's faint cries, the fence's electric pulse shrinking into the distance. You glance back. The squares salutes a memory that clings like coal dust, a spark of defiance carried forward. Inside, the transport is a world apart, all smooth leather and glowing panels, the air heavy with the scent of polished wood and something sharp, like citrus laced with steel. You settle across from Lena and Kaelin, who sit at a table laden with dishes roasted meats, glistening fruits, pastries dusted with sugar that shimmer like glass. The excess is a gut punch after the district's meager rations, and you see Lena's jaw tighten, her gaze fixed on a plate of berries, calculating their worth in bread back home. Kaelin's quieter, his fingers brushing a glass of amber liquid, but his eyes flick to Lena, like he's gauging her thoughts. That unspoken debt between them a tether in this alien space. The transport moves with eerie silence, the world outside blurring into fields of gold and green. Landscapes the district's people will never touch. You lean toward a window, catching glimpses of rivers winding through hills, their beauty a lie hiding the city's grip. The opulence is everywhere in the soft hum of the vehicle, the crystal flutes that clink with every turn, the way the lights cast a warm glow over the table. You run your hand along the seat's edge, its leather softer than anything in the district, and wonder what price was paid for this fleeting comfort. If I had to ride this thing every day, I'd probably get dizzy from all the shine. Give me a dusty trail any time, you think, a wry grin tugging at your lips. Vera Solis sweeps in, her silver curls bouncing, her voice a forced melody as she prattles about the city's wonders. The grand spire will take your breath away, she chirps, adjusting a gaudy bracelet. Lena barely glances up, her fork stabbing a piece of meat with more force than needed, her defiance a quiet burn. Callan nods, his politeness a mask, but you catch the way his hand steadies on the table, like he's bracing for what's ahead. You sense the tension between them, not sharp but careful, like two sparks circling each other, bound by the lottery's cruel draw. Their silence speaks louder than Vera's chatter, a reminder of the district's salutes, the farewells that still linger. A grizzled man lurches in, his coat rumpled, a flask glinting in his hand. It's Gavin, the district's only surviving champion, his eyes bloodshot but keen. You smell the liquor before he speaks, a sour edge cutting through the citrus air. Lena straightens, her gaze locking onto him, while Kaelin leans forward, curious but wary. Our brave contenders. Gavin slurs, collapsing into a seat, his voice thick with mockery. "Got any fight in you?" Lena's eyes narrow, and you can almost hear her thoughts. This is our guide. Gavin's a relic of the culling, scarred by victories the district barely remembers. But right now, he's more burden than mentor. You watch, the air crackling with unspoken challenges. The transports hum a steady undertone. Lena speaks first, her voice low, cutting through Gavin's haze. "What's the strategy?" He laughs, a rough bark, and takes a swig. "Don't die," he says, like it's a punchline. But his eyes harden, carrying the weight of too many lost names. Callan shifts, his hands clasped, and asks, "How do we win?" Gavin squints, like the question's a surprise, then leans in, his voice dropping. "Make them love you. Charm the city. Get their gifts." You feel the truth in his words. The culling's not just a fight, it's a performance. A game of hearts as much as blades. Lena's fingers tap the table, restless, her mind already mapping the dangers ahead. The conversation falters as Gavin slumps back, his flask empty. Lena pushes her plate away, her appetite gone, her eyes flicking to the window where the city's first lights glitter, a constellation of wealth and deceit. Kalen's quieter, but you catch him watching her. His thoughts tangled in that debt from years ago, a loaf of bread, a moment of kindness in the district's cold. You lean back, the transport's rhythm pulling you deeper into the moment. The landscapes outside giving way to towering spires, their glass facades gleaming like promises. The city's close now, its dangers hidden beneath the dazzle, and you sense Lena and Kalen bracing. Their spark from the square, a faint glow against the looming trial. Vera tries to fill the silence, babbling about banquets and stylists. But Lena and Callan tune her out, their focus inward. You watch them. Two souls from the same dust, but worlds apart, bound by a fate they didn't choose. Lena's defiance is a flame, steady and fierce, while Callan's strength is a quieter current, carving through stone. You think back to the lottery. Lena's stand for Mira, the district's salutes, and feel that spark alive here. In the way Lena's gaze challenges Gavin, in the way Callan's hands stay calm despite the storm. You know he feels. The transport hums on, the city's glow flooding the windows, a dazzling trap waiting to spring. The transport's hum softens as it glides into the heart of the city, its glass spires piercing the twilight like blades of light. You step out behind Lena and Colin, the platform alive with city folk in garish attire, feathered masks, glowing threads, skin dusted with gold that catches the eye like a lure. Their cheers crash over you, a wave of sound that feels too sharp, too hungry, and you catch Lena's jaw tighten, her eyes narrowing at the crowd's fervor. Colin's stance is steady, his sack of rolls tucked under one arm. But you see the flicker in his gaze, a district boy out of place in this dazzling trap. The air carries a mix of jasmine and metal, a far cry from the district's coal dust, and the marble underfoot gleams, polished to a mirror's sheen. You follow them through the throng. Vera soulless, leading with a flourish, her silver curls bouncing as she babbles about the city's grandeur. The capital unfolds like a fever dream, towers of crystal and steel, their surfaces rippling with holographic murals of past culling victors, their smiles frozen in triumph. Hoverpods hum above, trailing streams of light, while vendors hawk delicacies that glow faintly, their scents sweet and unnatural. You pause, your boots scuffing the seamless stone, and take in the spectacle fountains that dance to music. Statues carved from jade, laughter that rings like coins. It's a city that promises everything, but you feel its dark heart, a pulse of cruelty beneath the glitter, and the unease from the transport grows, coiling tighter. You catch up as Lena and Kalen are ushered into another sleek transport, its doors whispering shut. Inside, the seats are velvet, the air cool, and a screen flashes images of the culling arena, a forest of towering thorns, a lake that shimmers like glass, a spire of iron at its heart, ringed by crates of gleaming gear. Lena stares out the window, her braid resting against her shoulder, her face a mix of awe and distrust. Callan's quieter, his hands folded, but his eyes trace the city's contours like he's mapping a battlefield. You settle beside them, the transport gliding through avenues lined with golden trees, their leaves engineered to glow. A mockery of the district's barren fields, the city's wealth is a slap. Every light, every bite of food, a reminder of the district's hunger, and you feel that spark of defiance flicker, carried from the square's salutes. The transport halts at the spire, a towering structure of glass and steel, its peak lost in the clouds. You step out, the air warm with the scent of blooming vines that climb the walls, their flowers pulsing with light. Vera's heels click as she leads you into a lobby where chandeliers cast rainbows across obsidian floors, and you catch your reflection faint, like you're a ghost in this place of false promises. If I had to call this city home, I'd probably trip over all the sparkle before breakfast. You think, a wry grin tugging at your lips. Lena and Kalen are guided to an elevator, and you slip in, the doors closing with a soft hiss. The ascent swift as Vera chatters about stylists and spectacles. On the highest floor, you enter a suite that dwarfs the district's largest homes. The walls are transparent, offering a view of the city's endless glow, spires twinkling like a sea of stars, tables grown under platters of food-spiced meats, fruits that shimmer, drinks that bubble like they're alive. You watch Lena pause by a bowl of crystal berries, her fingers hovering, her eyes hard, like she's tallying the cost of each one in district lives. Kalen's more curious, lifting a strange, glowing fruit, but there's a shadow in his expression. A district boy sensing the strings attached to every gift. You move to the window, the city sprawling below, its beauty a lie hiding the culling's dark heart. And you think of Mira's tear-streaked face, the district's hollow eyes, the contrast of fire in your chest. Gavin's there, sprawled on a silk couch, a fresh flask in hand. "Welcome to paradise," he drawls, his voice thick with irony. And Lena's glare could cut stone, her patience fraying. Colin nods, his calm a shield. But you sense his mind working, piecing together Gavin's warnings from the transport charm the city, win their favor. You linger by a balcony, the air cooler now, carrying the city's electric hum, a reminder of its power. Lena joins you, her hands gripping the railing, her gaze distant. "It's all a game," she mutters, and you nod, feeling the truth of it. The city's promises as hollow as the district's hopes. Vera introduces a team of stylists, names like Silva and Corin, their faces sculpted, their voices high and eager. They swarm Lena and Callan, measuring, prodding, chattering about radiance and drama. Lena stiffens, her jaw tight, while Callan answers their questions with a measured calm. His eyes flicking to Lena, that debt between them a silent pulse. You watch the stylist's tools hum, their hands shaping the district's champions into the city's pawns, and feel the culling's grip tighten. You think back to the lottery, Lena's defiance, the district's salutes, and wonder if that spark can survive this city's dazzle, its dangers lurking like thorns beneath the glow. The suite's lights soften, signaling night, though the city below burns bright. You step back to the balcony, the vine scent fading, and let the capital's pulse wash over you. Lena and Callan are on the edge of a trial that could break them, but you sense their fire, kindled in the district's dust, ready to flare against the city's false promises. The city's glittering spires fade into the morning's haze as you step into the Crucible, a vast training hall buried beneath the spire's gleaming facade. The air hums with the clang of steel and the sharp tang of sweat, a stark shift from the jasmine-scented suites above. You stand at the edge of the training floor, your boots silent on the polished obsidian tiles, watching Lena and Callan navigate this arena of skill and rivalry. The hall is a labyrinth of stations, archery ranges with glowing targets, blade racks glinting like teeth, survival rigs strewn with ropes and traps, each a forge for the Culling's champions. Other tributes move like wolves, their eyes sharp, sizing up foes under the cold gaze of city trainers in silver tunics. Lena stands at the archery station, her braid tucked beneath a training harness, her fingers testing a sleek bow that hums faintly with city tech. You see her ease into it, like it's a piece of the district's forest brought to life, her shoulders loosening as she nocks a glowing arrow. The shot flies, striking the target's heart with a soft ping, and you catch a flicker of pride in her eyes, quickly veiled as she steps back. Callan's nearby, grappling with a rope and pulley rig. His broad hands steady but his brow furrowed, his district strength adapting to the city's tools. You sense his quiet resolve. A contrast to Lena's fire, yet tied to that same debt from years ago. A loaf of bread in a starving night. You weave through the stations, the air thick with the clatter of blades and the low hum of trainers' instructions. The elite tributes born in the city's favored zones, trained since childhood, dominate the sparring rings, their laughter cutting like glass. Kale, a towering figure with cropped hair and a scar across his cheek, hurls a rival to the mat. His grin a blade, and you feel the hall's tension spike. Lena glances over, her eyes narrowing, marking him as a predator to outwit. Callan's watching too, his hands pausing on the rope, and you catch a shadow of doubt in his gaze, swiftly buried as he pulls the knot tight. The Crucible feels like a stage, every move scrutinized by trainers, and somewhere above, the city's elite, their eyes hidden behind mirrored screens. You glance up, imagining their cold calculations, weighing who will shine in the Culling spotlight. The city's wealth lingers here in the flawless equipment, the endless water flasks, the trainers' gleaming boots, but it's honed to a purpose, a crucible to sharpen killers. You think back to the suite's dazzling excess, the city's false promises, and feel that unease sharpen. A blade pressed to your ribs, the district salutes a distant spark against this polished menace. You pause by a survival station, where a trainer demonstrates weaving a thermal net from shimmering fibers. Lena drifts over, her eyes scanning the setup, her hunter's mind cataloging every twist. She's a daughter of the district's woods, and this is her language, unlike the elites who flaunt their strength like a banner. Colin joins her, his hands dusted with chalk from a climbing rig, and they exchange a glance, brief but heavy, that debt between them a silent pulse. You recall Gavin's words from the transport, make them love you, get their gifts, and wonder how they'll navigate this game. Two district souls against these city-bred hunters. A trainer calls for a group drill, and you watch the tributes gather, their movements a blend of bravado and caution. Lena hangs back, her gaze flicking between Cole's crew and the outliers. Like Syl, a wiry girl from a distant zone, her fingers quick as she ties a snare. Callan's in the mix, his strength showing as he hefts a weighted staff. But he's careful, sidestepping Cole's taunts. You catch Cale's sneer as he brushes past Colin, muttering something that makes Colin's jaw clench. and you feel the air tighten. A storm of rivalries brewing. If I were Colin, I'd probably stick to knot tying and call it a win, you think. A faint grin breaking the tension. But you know he's got more fight in him. Forged in the district's dust. The hours grind on, the Crucible a blur of motion and sound. Lena moves to a blade-throwing station. Her throws sharp but measured, like she's guarding her true skill. You remember her arrow's perfect arc, the way she hid its full power, and see her playing the long game, a hunter's patience against the city's haste. Callan struggles at a camouflage station, his hand smearing pigment across a panel, but he listens to the trainer. Adapting, building his strength step by step, you see their contrast Lena's instinct, a spark ready to flare. Colin's resolve, a steady coal burning deep, and it's like watching two flames from the same district, kindled by hardship, now tested in this crucible. You lean against a steel column, its chill grounding you, and watch the tributes disperse as the session ends. Lena and Callan head toward the elevators, their faces worn but alert, and you follow, the crucible's hum fading behind. The city's game is tightening. Every skill, every glance a step toward the Culling's arena. You think back to the lottery. Lena's stand for Mira, the district's salutes, and know that spark of defiance burns still, in the way Lena carries her bow, in the way Callan's eyes meet hers, a silent vow to endure. The elevator doors close, lifting you through the spire's core, the city's lights a glittering trap beyond the glass. Lena and Callan stand in silence, but the air between them is heavy, alive with questions they're not ready to voice. You settle back, the ascent's rhythm steady, and brace for the city's next move, its dark heart beating closer with every floor. The elevator's hum fades as you step into the pulsing heart of the city's grand amphitheater. A cavernous dome where the Culling's tributes are unveiled to a ravenous crowd. The air crackles with anticipation, thick with the scent of spiced wine and shimmering dust that clings to the skin like a second glow. You find a spot near the stage, your boots sinking into a velvet carpet. The dome's ceiling a star field of crystal lights that pulse to an unseen rhythm. Lena and Callan wait backstage, hidden behind a curtain of liquid gold, but you feel the moment building. A spark ready to ignite under the city's gaze. The crowd draped in silks that shift color, their faces painted with luminous streaks, hums with excitement, their cheers a tide waiting to crest. The stage gleams, a crescent of polished obsidian flanked by holographic flames, and at its center stands Dorian Vex, the city's master of ceremonies, his silver hair aglow, his suit woven with threads that shimmer like moonlight. His voice booms, warm and slick, riling the audience with tales of culling glory. You can't help but wonder how he keeps that energy. Probably runs on pure city sparkle, you think, a wry grin tugging at your lips. The lights dim, the music swells, and the showcase begins. Each tribute stepping forward to claim their moment, to charm or falter before the city's elite. You watch the early displays, the elite tributes from the city's favored zones striding out like they own the stars. Coil, the scarred giant, stalks the stage, his voice a growl as he vows to crush his foes, his blade flashing in a practiced arc that draws roars from the crowd. Lyra, a lithe figure with gilded hair, spins a tale of cunning, her smile sharp, and the audience leans in, captivated by her venomous charm. You feel the city's hunger for their ferocity, their polish, and the unease from the crucible sharpens, a reminder of the game's dark heart. The lesser zones stumble, some tributes mumble, others overreach, their nerves cracking under the stage's glare. You think of the district, of Lena and Callan, and wonder how they'll face this dazzling crucible. When Dorian calls Callan's name, you lean forward, your pulse quickening. He steps out, his blonde hair neat, his dark tunic tailored to hint at his strength. A district boy remade by city hands. The crowd's cheers are warm, unexpected, and you see why Colin carries a quiet ease, a warmth that pulls people in. He grips Dorian's hand, his smile genuine, and takes the stage like he's telling a story by a district fire. Dorian tosses light questions about the city's feasts, the spire's glow, and Colin answers with a baker's humor, joking about burning his first loaf in the district's oven. The crowd laughs, and you spot Gavin in the wings, his flask lowered, a rare nod of approval. Kaelin's playing the city's game, weaving charm as Gavin urged, and you feel a spark of hope for him, faint but real. Then Dorian's tone shifts, his eyes glinting as he asks about someone special back home. Colin's smile wavers, just for a heartbeat, and you hold your breath. "There's a girl," he says, his voice soft but clear, "who saved me once, long ago." The crowd murmurs, hanging on his words, and you see Lena backstage, her braid catching the light, her eyes narrowing. Kaelin's gaze drifts toward her, like he feels her watching, and he adds, "She's here, fighting beside me." Lena's my reason. The amphitheater erupts, cheers and gasps blending into a storm, and you feel the air shift, Kaelin's words rewriting the city's script. Lena's face is stone, but her hands clench, and you sense the weight of his confession, a district debt laid bare before the stars. Callan's moment ends with a wave, the crowd still buzzing as he steps back, his eyes searching for Lena. When Dorian announces her, you turn to the stage, your heart pounding. Lena emerges, and the dome falls silent. Every eye on her, her gown, crafted by her stylist, is a cascade of ember-red silk, its edges flickering like flames, a nod to her district's fire. She's a beacon, and the crowd feels it, their cheers swelling into a roar. You see her pause, her breath catching, then lift her chin, her braid gleaming under the starlit lights, her presence a defiance that needs no words. Dorian greets her with a flourish, guiding her to the stage's center, and you watch her stand. Her movements deliberate, like a hunter stalking prey. He starts with easy questions about the city's wonders. Her sister Mira and Lena answers, her voice steady but edged, her eyes scanning the crowd like she's mapping an escape. You think back to the Crucible, her arrow's perfect arc, and see that same focus now. Tempered by the stage's weight, Dorian shifts, asking why she took Mira's place, and Lena's face softens, her words simple but raw, speaking of Mira's light, her need to protect it. The crowd leans in, drawn to her truth, and you feel the district's spark flare, carried by her voice, her fire. Then Dorian spins her, and the gown ignites, its fabric shimmering like a living flame. The crowd gasps, then roars, and Lena turns, her eyes wide but her smile real, a moment of wonder breaking through her guard. You see her stylist in the wings, a shadowed figure with a quiet pride, and know this was their plan to make her unforgettable. Dorian dubs her the Ember of the Dust, and the name sticks, the crowd chanting it as Lena steps back, her gown still glowing faintly. You think of the lottery, the salutes, and feel that defiance burn brighter, a flame the city can't tame. Lena joins Kaelin backstage, their eyes meeting for a charged moment before she looks away. The weight of his words lingering. The amphitheater pulses with energy, but you feel the Culling's shadow, the arena waiting beyond the starlit stage, Lena's fire. Kaelin's heart, they've captivated the city. but you know its love is a fleeting promise, and the true fight lies ahead. The grand amphitheater's cheers fade like a distant storm as you find yourself in a cold, metallic chamber beneath the arena. The air sharp with the tang of oil and iron. The hum of unseen machines vibrates through the floor. A pulse that matches the fear coiling in your chest. You stand near Lena. Her frame taut in a fitted tunic of charcoal gray, her braid tucked under a hood, her face set like flint. The iron platform that will carry her into the culling gleams ahead, a stark circle etched with city runes, more cage than gateway. Callan's nearby, separated by a translucent barrier, his eyes fixed on the ground, his hands flexing as if gripping an invisible lifeline. The game's countdown has begun, and you feel it in the air, heavy as the district's coal dust. A figure in a flowing cloak. Soren. Lena's stylist adjusts her tunic, his hands steady, his voice low. "The city's not your enemy," he murmurs, a cryptic spark in his eyes. And Lena nods, her gaze meeting his with a flicker of trust. You notice a small pendant at her throat, a carved stone shaped like a flame, a district token remade by city hands. The chamber's walls pulse with screens showing the arena's surface a tangle of thorned vines, a mirrored lake, an iron spire at its heart, ringed by crates of gleaming gear. You know what's coming: the frenzy, the betrayal, the moment these souls become pieces in the city's cruel game. Your pulse races, the air biting your lungs. You move closer to Lena, the platform's edge casting a shadow across her boots. She's studying the screens, her hunter's mind mapping the terrain vines for cover, open ground for danger, the spire's deadly lure. You recall her arrow in the Crucible, its perfect arc, and know she's plotting her first move. Kalen's platform is visible through the barrier, and you catch his glance toward Lena, brief but heavy, carrying the weight of his stage confession. That thread between them, kindled in the district's dust, is taut now, stretched by the arena's shadow. A metallic voice slices through the silence, cold and precise. "Contenders, prepare for ascent in 60 seconds. Lena's hands clench, her pendant glinting, and Soren steps back, his face calm but fierce with belief. You feel the chamber rumble as the platforms activate, and you slip onto Lena's, an unseen shadow, your heart pounding like the district's mines. The translucent tube descends, sealing you with her, and the platform begins to rise, slow and relentless, toward the arena. You glance at Lena, her breath quick but controlled, her eyes locked on the light above. If I were facing this game, I'd probably wish for a nice, quiet forest hunt instead. You think, a faint grin breaking the dread. But Lena's focus is a blade, her fire unwavering. The tube opens to a blinding sun, and you're in the arena, the air thick with the scent of sap and scorched earth. You stand with Lena on her platform, surrounded by the other tributes, each on their own pedestal, forming a ring around the iron spire. Its jagged peak towers over crates of weapons, ropes, and shimmering packs survival's price, if you can claim it. Beyond, thorned vines twist into a dense maze, while open fields stretch to the mirrored lake, its surface unnaturally still. The 60-second countdown flashes in the sky, and you feel the arena's silence, a held breath before the storm. You scan the tributes, their faces a mix of hunger and terror. Coil, the elite from the city's core, stands like a statue, his eyes fixed on a curved blade at the spire, his body coiled for slaughter. Lyra's nearby, her gilded hair catching the sun, her fingers twitching toward a crossbow. Syl, the wiry girl from a distant zone, looks small but sharp, her gaze darting to the vines. Kalen's across the ring, his eyes flicking between Lena and the crates, and you sense his struggle. Safety or risk, loyalty or survival. Lena's focused on a sleek bow near the spire's base, but you feel her caution. Gavin's warning echoing. Don't rush the center. Get out fast. The countdown hits 30 seconds, and you feel the tribute's tension, a bowstring drawn to breaking. Lena shifts, her boots gripping the platform, her body angled toward the vines, her pendant a faint glow against her tunic. You notice it again, that carved flame, and think of Soren's words, the district's salutes, a spark of defiance against the iron gates you passed. The arena's beauty golden light. Tangled green is a lie, a stage for the city's spectacle, and you know the overseers are watching, ready to twist the game with traps or beasts. You take a breath, the sap scent sharp, and brace for the signal, the moment that will unleash chaos. The countdown drops to 10, then 5, and you feel Lena's pulse through the air, steady but fierce. Her eyes flick to Kalen, just for a moment, and you wonder if she's weighing his confession, his role in her fight, or simply her own survival. The signal blares, a deep, bone-rattling horn, and the arena explodes into motion. Lena leaps from the platform, her feet hitting the earth, and you're with her. Heart pounding as the culling begins, the horn's deep blare still echoes as the arena ignites. Tributes charging from their platforms toward the iron spire's gleaming crates. You're with Lena, her boots pounding the earth, her eyes locked on a small gray pack just shy of the spire's deadly heart. The air is thick with the scent of torn grass and sweat, and the sounds of chaos shouts, steel clashing. Desperate gasps crash around you like a breaking wave. You feel the sun's heat, the dread pulsing in your chest as Lena weaves through the fray, her hunter's instincts sharp as a blade. The spire towers ahead, its crates of weapons and gear glinting like a trap, a magnet for the culling's opening storm. You glance across the field, where Kale, the elite from the city's core, barrels toward the spire's center, his massive frame shoving a smaller tribute aside. He snatches a curved blade, his grin sharp, and you see a wiry boy from a coastal zone lunge for a spear, only to stumble under Kale's swift, punishing strike. The crates are a swarm, now. Lyra grabs a crossbow, her gilded hair flashing, while another elite, Vorn, hefts a mace. You spot Syl, the small girl from a distant zone, darting past the chaos, her nimble feet carrying her toward the thorned vines empty-handed, her eyes wide but cunning. Smart play, you think, your heart racing as the clash unfolds. Lena reaches the gray pack, her fingers closing around it, just as a lanky tribute with wild eyes dives for the same prize. You see her pause, her breath catching, but she yanks the pack free and spins, dodging his grasp. His face twists with hunger, and you feel the raw desperation driving every soul here, a mirror of the district's daily fight. Lena sprints for the vines, her braid bouncing, but a dagger whistles past, thrown by a girl with a predator's smirk, Zara, an elite. You flinch, the blade sinking into the earth inches from Lena's path, and she stumbles, catching herself before bolting again. You're right behind, the ground slick under your boots, the cries of the fallen sharp in your ears. You look back, drawn to the spire's frenzy, and see Colin dashing toward the vines, a small satchel clutched tight. He's quick, but an elite's on his tail, a wiry figure with a spiked club raised. Kalen ducks, weaving through the field, and you lose him as he slips into the thorns. The spire's heart is a maelstrom now, tributes grappling for gear, their movements wild. You catch a glimpse of a girl from a mountain zone, her hands empty, falling under an elite's spear and you turn away, the image searing your mind. The city's cameras are everywhere, you know, beaming this chaos to their cheering crowds, and the thought twists like a thorn, a reminder of the game's dark heart. Lena reaches the vine's edge, her breath ragged, and you follow. The cool shade a fleeting shield from the sun's glare. She crouches behind a gnarled thorn, her eyes scanning the field, the gray pack gripped tight. You kneel beside her, the vine's sharp scent stinging your nose, and watch the clash at the spire wind down. The elites have claimed the best crates blades, crossbows, packs stuffed with food. Call standing at the center, his blade slick with red, his eyes sweeping the vines like a hunter. You feel Lena's tension, her fingers digging into the pack, and know she's thinking the same. The real fight starts now. You count the fallen, several tributes lie still, their hopes snuffed out in moments. The city's horns will sound soon, marking each loss, but you feel the toll in the air, heavy as the district's dust. Lena's face is grim, her eyes flicking to the sleek bow, still at the spire, now in Lyra's hands. You sense her ache for that weapon, her hunter's edge blunted without it. But she's alive, and that's a victory in this chaos. You think back to the Crucible, her arrow's perfect arc, and know she's far from beaten, her fire burning steady. The arena quiets, the spire's frenzy fading, but the air feels charged, the culling's rhythm shifting. You notice Lena's pendant, the carved flame catching a stray beam of light, and think of Soren's words, "The city's not your enemy," a spark of defiance against the iron gates you passed. The elite's laughter drifts from the spire, a reminder of their strength, their alliance. You feel the arena's vastness, its tangled vines and mirrored lake hiding traps, beasts, snares, whatever the overseers conjure. Lena checks the pack rope, a flask, a handful of dried roots, and you see her mind working, mapping the vines, the lake, the dangers. She rises, her steps silent, and heads deeper into the thorns, her path a hunter's choice. You follow, the vine's shadows closing around you, your heart still pounding from the chaos, knowing the culling's only begun. If I were in her boots, I'd probably be hiding in the nearest bush, hoping for a nap, you think, a faint smile cutting the tension. But Lena's fire is a beacon, leading you into the fight. The spire's chaos fades into a distant roar as you trail Lena deeper into the arena's thorned wilderness, the tangled vines closing around you like a living wall. The air is heavy with the scent of sap and damp moss, a stark shift from the scorched earth of the spire's field. Lena moves like a ghost, her steps silent, her eyes scanning the shadows for threats. The gray pack bounces lightly against her back, its contents rope, a flask. Dried roots her only shield in this deadly game. You keep pace, your boots brushing the soft earth, your heart still racing from the clash at the spire, the fallen tribute's cries echoing in your mind. Lena pauses behind a twisted thorn tree, its barbs glinting like teeth, and you crouch beside her, the rough bark sharp against your palm. She's listening, her head tilted, catching the arena's pulse, faint rustles, a bird's sharp call, the occasional crack of a distant branch. The elite's laughter from the spire is gone, replaced by a stillness that feels like a predator's pause. You see her check the pack again, her fingers quick but careful, and catch the tension in her jaw, the weight of being alone in a game built to shatter. Her pendant, the carved flame, glints faintly, a district spark against the culling's dark, and you think of Soren's words, the salutes from the square, fueling her fire. You glance back toward the spire, now hidden by the vines, and wonder about Kalen. You saw him sprint for the wilderness, a satchel in hand, an elite on his heels. Is he safe, hidden, or caught? Lena's eyes flicker that way too, just for a moment, and you sense her thoughts drifting to him, his confession during the showcase, his steady presence in the Crucible. She shakes it off, her focus snapping back to survival. And you admire her steel, the way she buries doubt beneath action. A hunter's heart forged in the district's dust. The wilderness feels alive, its beauty a deception. You notice the vine's thorns, some dripping with a faint, glistening sap that smells faintly of rot, a city-engineered trap. The ground slopes toward a stream, its water shimmering under the dappled light. And Lena heads there, her movements cautious, pausing to test each step. You follow, the air growing cooler, the humidity clinging to your skin. A low hum cuts through the silence, like a distant machine. And Lena freezes, her hand on a vine, her eyes scanning the canopy. You hold your breath, wondering if it's a city trick, a drone, a beast, or just the arena's pulse. The sound fades, and she moves on, but you feel the overseer's eyes, their cameras woven into the vines, watching every step. Lena reaches the stream, its water clear but unnaturally still, and kneels to fill her flask. You settle nearby, the pebbles cold under your hands, and watch her work. Her hands steady despite the stakes. She sips sparingly, her eyes never leaving the vines, and you realize how small her world has become, this stream, this wilderness, this moment. You think back to the district's woods, where she hunted with Tauren, and see that same instinct here, sharpened by the culling's edge. She's not just fleeing, she's carving a path, moment by moment, like she's always done. A branch snaps nearby, and Lena drops low, her body taut, her hand slipping to a jagged stone as a makeshift weapon. You scan the vines, your pulse spiking, but the shadows hold still. Only a faint rustle betraying a passing creature, maybe a city-made beast, maybe just the wind. Lena waits, her eyes like embers, then rises, tucking the stone into her belt before moving on. You follow, the stream's shimmer fading behind, and notice her marking her trail, a notched vine here, a shifted pebble there, subtle signs for later, a hunter's map in a world of thorns. The day stretches, the sun climbing through the canopy, its heat muffled by the vines. Lena finds a small clearing, its earth soft with moss, and pauses to eat a pinch of dried roots from the pack. You sit nearby, the ground cool, and watch her chew slowly. Her gaze sweeping the horizon. She's thinking of water, shelter, the elites. You can tell her mind a web of risks and plans. You think of the lottery, her stand for Mira, and see that same fire now, burning steady against the odds. If I were her, I'd probably be dreaming of a nice cave to hide in till this game's over. You think, a faint smile easing the tension. But Lena's built for this. Her strength rooted in the district's grit. The wilderness grows quieter as dusk creeps in, the birds falling silent, the air stilling. Lena climbs a sturdy vine-wrapped tree, her hands finding holds with ease, and you follow her gaze upward, where the branches offer a shadowed perch. She ties herself to a limb with the pack's rope, her movements deft, like she's done this in the district's woods 100 times. You settle against the trunk, the bark rough, and feel the arena's rhythm slow, the day giving way to night. Lena's eyes are on the sky, waiting for the city's horns to mark the day's losses, and you know she's counting, hoping Callan's not among them. The first horn sounds, a low wail that shakes the vines, and you feel Lena tense, her breath catching. More. Follow 6. 7. 8 each, a life erased. Names from the lottery gone. You think of the Spire's chaos, the coastal boy, the mountain girl, and feel the culling's weight settle like dust. Lena's face is unreadable, but her hands grip the branch tighter, and you know she's bracing for the fight ahead. The wilderness is her refuge, but also a cage, and the culling's fire is only beginning to burn. The arena's dusk weaves shadows through the thorned wilderness, cloaking you as you linger near Lena, who's tethered to her tree perch, her eyes scanning the tangled canopy. The city's horns, 8 in all, have faded, leaving a silence that feels like a held breath, heavy with the culling's toll. You sense Lena's thoughts, sharp and restless, tallying the surviving tributes, wondering about Callan, the elites, and the dangers lurking in the vines. Her pendant, the carved flame, catches a stray moonbeam, a district spark against the arena's dark, and you feel her fire. Steady despite the game's grind. The air smells of moss and cooling sap, and you settle against the trunk, the bark rough under your hands, waiting for the night to unfold. A soft rustle below snaps you alert, and Lena's hand slips to the jagged stone in her belt, her body tensing. You peer through the branches, your pulse quickening, and spot a small figure moving in the moonlight sill, the wiry girl from a distant zone, her dark eyes sharp, her steps light as a fox's. She clutches a slingshot, her frame barely stirring the vines, and you see Lena ease just a fraction, recognizing her from the Crucible's quiet corners. Syl pauses, glancing up, and you feel the moment stretch. 2 survivors weighing trust in a game that thrives on betrayal. Lena unties herself, descending with a hunter's grace, and you follow, the earth soft under your boots. She lands near Syl, keeping her distance but lowering her stone, her voice low. Traveling solo, she asks, and Syl nods, her eyes flicking to the vines, always watchful. A beat passes, then Syl speaks, her voice soft but steady. Saw you at the spire. You move like you know the wild. Lena's lips twitch, almost a smile, and you feel the first thread of an alliance forming. Fragile as a spider's silk, but rooted in shared instinct. You watch them slip into a small clearing, the moonlight pooling on the moss, and settle in the shadows, the air cool against your skin. Syl's young, no older than Mira, and you see Lena's gaze soften, her thoughts drifting to her sister back in the district. Syl pulls a handful of pale nuts from a pouch, offering them to Lena, who hesitates before taking one, her hunter's senses testing for danger. The nuts are bitter but safe, and you sense Lena's guard lower, just a touch, as they share the small meal in silence. It's a quiet act, sharing food in a place where trust is a gamble, but it feels like a bridge, built on shared defiance, shared survival. Syl speaks, her voice a soft hum, telling of her zone's windswept cliffs, where her people sing to the sea, their voices carrying loss and hope. You listen, the words painting a world of salt and stone, so different from the district's coal mines yet bound by the same city chains. Lena listens too, her eyes on Syl, and you see the echo of Mira in the girl's quick hands, her stubborn spark. You're like my sister, Lena says, almost to herself, and Syl's smile is faint but warm, a light in the arena's gloom. You think of the lottery, Lena's stand for Mira, and feel that protective fire in her now, reaching out to this stranger from another zone. They talk strategy, their voices hushed, planning to survive the night. Syl's sharp, pointing out edible roots, vines to avoid, and you see Lena's respect grow, her hunter's mind recognizing a kindred spirit. They agree to team up, a fragile pact in a game that feeds on broken bonds, and you feel the alliance take root. Not just survival, but something deeper, a spark of humanity the city can't crush. Syl shows Lena a cluster of glowing spores high in a nearby tree, a city-made trap that hums with latent heat, and you catch Lena's eyes gleam, her mind spinning a plan to turn the arena's tricks against their foes. If I were part of that scheme, I'd probably just steer clear and hope the spores don't sneeze, you think, a faint grin breaking the tension. But Lena's plotting, her fire flaring brighter. The night deepens, the wilderness alive with soft sounds. Crickets, a distant hoot, the creak of vines. Lena and Syl find a hollow beneath a thorned root, its moss a makeshift shield, and you settle nearby, the earth cool under you. They share the last of the nuts, their whispers fading as they plan to rest in shifts. You watch Lena take the first watch, her stone in hand, her eyes sweeping the darkness, while Syl curls up, her small frame barely visible. There's a tenderness in Lena's gaze, a vow to protect, and you feel its weight. This alliance a defiance of the Culling's cruel math, a light the city didn't plan for. You think back to the Crucible, Syl's quick hands tying snares, and see that same cunning now, mirrored in Lena's steady resolve. The arena's dangers elites, beasts. The overseer's traps loom large, but this moment feels like a small victory, a spark carried from the district's salutes, the zone's sea-songs, into the wilderness. The sky above is clear, the city's anthem droning faintly as it projects the fallen tributes' faces. But you don't look. You're focused on Lena and Syl, their bond aflame in the arena's dark, guiding you deeper into the fight. Dawn's faint light seeps through the thorned wilderness, casting a pale glow over the vines as you linger near Lena and Syl, crouched in their mossy hollow, whispering their plan. The air is crisp, heavy with the scent of sap and earth, but a tension hums beneath, like the arena senses the strike to come. Lena's eyes are sharp, locked on the glowing spores Syl pointed out last night, nestled high in a tree near the elite's camp by the mirrored lake. You see the fire in her, the same defiance that drove her to take Mira's place, now aimed at outwitting the predators. Syl's beside her, small but steady, her slingshot ready, her trust in Lena a quiet strength. You feel their bond, fragile yet fierce, a spark against the Culling's dark. Lena checks her gray pack, the rope and flask secure, her carved flame pendant glinting like a district vow. You follow as they slip through the vines, their steps silent, heading toward the elite's camp. The wilderness stirs, birds trill. A vine creaks, but every sound makes Lena pause, her hand hovering over her jagged stone. You keep pace, the thorns brushing your sleeves, your pulse quickening at the risk of their gambit. The spores, city-engineered to burn on contact, are a weapon if they can wield them, but one wrong move could turn the trap on them. You reach the camp's edge, hidden by a tangle of vines, and peer through the leaves. The iron spire looms by the lake, its crates neatly stacked blades, crossbows, packs of food. The elites Kyle, Lyra, Vorn, Zara are sprawled around a smoldering fire, their laughter sharp, their weapons close. You spot Lyra's crossbow, the one Lena coveted, propped against a crate, and feel her frustration, her fingers twitching. A nervous boy from a lowland zone tends the fire, his eyes darting, an uneasy tag-along. Above, the spore cluster glows faintly in a gnarled tree, its hum a low warning. A city trap waiting to be sprung. Lena signals Syl, who nods and slips away, her small frame vanishing into the vines to set a diversion. You stay with Lena, watching her climb the tree, her hands finding holds with district-born ease. The bark is slick, the branches swaying, and you feel the height, the ground far below. She reaches the spores, her movements deliberate, and pulls her stone, its edge sharpened against arena rocks. The hum grows louder, a pulse that sets your nerves on edge, and you see Lena's jaw tighten, her eyes fixed on the glowing mass. If I were up there, I'd probably just wave at those spores and hope they're friendly, you think, a faint grin breaking the tension. But Lena's all focus, her fire a steady burn. She begins scraping at the branch, the stone's edge biting softly, and you hold your breath, the hum turning angry. A single spore drifts free, its glow pulsing, and Lena freezes, but it doesn't ignite. You glance at the camp, where the elites are still unaware, trading barbs over their meal. Then, in the distance, smoke curls upward, Sill's diversion, a fire to draw them out. Kale snaps to attention, barking orders, and you see Lyra and Vorn grab weapons, heading toward the smoke, leaving Zara and the lowland boy behind. Lena works faster, the branch groaning, and you feel the plan teetering, a spark about to flare. The branch snaps, and the spore cluster plummets, hitting the ground in a burst of searing light. You watch the spores ignite, a wave of heat and ash sweeping the camp. Zara shouts, scrambling as the burning spores sting, and the lowland boy bolts, only to collapse under a cloud of fiery dust. Lena scrambles down, but a stray spore grazes her arm, its burn sharp, and you see her wince, her vision blurring. She stumbles, snatching the crossbow and a quiver from the chaos, and sprints for the vines, the heat licking at her heels. You follow, your heart pounding, the wilderness a blur of green and shadow as she runs, her steps faltering but driven by survival. Lena collapses by a stream, her breath ragged, the burn on her arm red and raw. You kneel beside her, the water's soft rush of faint comfort, and see her clutch the crossbow, a hard-won prize. Her eyes are hazy, the spore's venom working, but she fights, her hunter's will unyielding. You think of Sill out there sparking fires, and hope she's safe, her small frame dodging the elite's wrath. The wilderness feels heavier, the air thick with the strike's aftermath. And you know the overseers are watching, their cameras catching every moment for the city's roaring crowds. The city's horns sound two low wails, likely Zara and the lowland boy, claimed by the spores. You see Lena flinch, her mind battling the venom's fog, and feel the weight of her daring. She's wounded but alive, the crossbow a piece of her fire reclaimed. You think back to the Crucible, her arrow's perfect arc, and know this is her core a fighter, a spark carrying the district's salutes into the arena's dark. The stream's cool air brushes your skin, and you stay close, watching Lena fight to stay conscious. The Culling's next challenge looming like a storm on the horizon. The arena's midday sun filters through the thorned vines, casting fractured light as you linger near Lena, who's slumped by the stream, the spore's venom still clouding her eyes. The burn on her arm is raw, but her grip on the stolen crossbow is fierce, a hard-won edge against the Culling's tide. You feel the arena's weight, its silence heavy after the spore strike. The two horns, likely Zara and the lowland boy, still ringing in your mind. Lena stirs, her gaze clearing slightly, driven by the need to find Sill, her young ally who risked everything for their plan. The air smells of damp earth and singed moss, but a quiet dread hums beneath, like the wilderness knows what's coming. You follow as Lena rises, her steps unsteady but resolute, the crossbow slung across her back. She moves through the vines, her hunter's instincts guiding her toward the rendezvous point. She and Sill set a ring of smooth stones in a glade. You keep pace, the thorns snagging your sleeves. your heart heavy with worry for Syl. The elites are hunting now, enraged by Lena's strike, and Syl's diversion put her in their sights. You think of her wiry frame, her seaborne songs, and hope she's hidden. Her spark still alive in this cruel game. The glade comes into view, the stones glinting under the sun, but it's too still. The air void of birdsong. Lena pauses, her eyes sweeping the vines, and you feel her unease, a knot tightening in your chest. Then you hear it a faint gasp, soft and broken, like a wounded creature. Syl. Lena calls, her voice sharp, and she sprints toward the sound, her crossbow ready. You follow, vines snapping underfoot, and reach a small clearing where Syl lies trapped in a net of city-woven cords, her arms pinned, her face pale with fear. Lena drops to her knees, her knife flashing as she cuts the cords, her hands urgent, desperate. You see Syl's relief, her eyes locking onto Lena's, but the moment shatters as a spear arcs from the vines, striking Syl's side. You freeze, the air punched out of you as Lena spins, her crossbow raised, and fires a bolt into the shadows. Vorn, the elite with the mace, falls, his body crumpling, but it's too late. You kneel beside Lena, the grass cool and slick, and watch her cradle Syl, her hands trembling as she eases the spear free. Syl's breath is shallow, her small hand clutching Lena's, and you feel the glade narrow to this moment, the Culling's cruelty laid bare. Lena's face is a storm of grief and rage, her voice soft as she whispers, "Hold on, Syl, I've got you." Syl's eyes are wide, searching, and she murmurs, "Sing, like home." You see Lena hesitate, her throat tight, but she nods, her hand brushing Syl's hair. She begins to sing, her voice low and raw, a district lullaby about a fire that burns through the night. The notes are simple, carrying the weight of Mira, the district, everything Lena fights for. You listen, the melody wrapping around you, and feel the wilderness hush, as if the arena mourns with her. If I could sing like that, I'd probably stick to campfires and skip this whole culling mess, you think, a faint smile breaking the ache. But it fades fast, the moment too heavy. Syl's breathing slows, her hand slipping from Lena's, and you see the light fade from her eyes, her small body stilling. A horn wails, sharp and final, and you feel it like a stone. The loss of this girl who echoed Mira, who carried sea songs into the arena's dark. Lena's song breaks, her voice faltering, and she closes Syl's eyes, her hands gentle but shaking. You watch her gather wild blooms from the glade pale blue, delicate as Syl's spirit, and arrange them around her. A quiet defiance against the city's cameras, watching from the vines. Lena stands, her crossbow in hand, and turns to the sky, her face fierce. She raises 2 fingers to her lips, then lifts them high, a district salute mirrored for Syl. For her distant cliffs, you feel the gesture's power, a spark that could ripple beyond the arena. And you join her, your hand raised, the glade silent but alive with meaning. You think back to the lottery, the crowd salutes, and see Lena's fire burned brighter through her grief. Her bond with Syl a flame the city can't snuff out. She lingers, her eyes on Syl's still form, then turns, slipping back into the vines, her steps heavy but sure. You follow, the blooms vivid in your mind, a contrast to the arena's shadows. Lena's grief is a weight, but so is her resolve, her crossbow a vow to endure. You hear a rustle in the distance, perhaps the elites, perhaps a trap, and know the Culling's fire is far from spent. The wilderness closes around you, its thorns sharp, but Syl's song lingers, a thread of light in the fight ahead. The glade's wild blooms fade into shadow, as you trail Lena through the thorned wilderness. Her steps quieter now, weighted by Syl's loss. The air is thick with the scent of sap and cooling earth. The arena's silence a heavy cloak after the horn that marked Syl's fall. Lena grips her crossbow, its sleek frame glinting faintly under the waning light. Her carved flame pendant a small beacon of the district's defiance. You sense her grief, raw and jagged, but also her fire, the same spark that carried her through the spore strike and Syl's final moments, now burning to endure. The vine's thorns glint like city traps, and you keep pace, your boots soft on the moss, your heart heavy with the culling's toll. You follow Lena through a dense tangle, the vines curling tighter, when a low murmur catches your ear. She freezes, her crossbow raised, and you peer through the thorns, spotting a flicker of movement by a jagged rock. It's Kalen, his blonde hair matted with dirt, his side bloodied from a shallow gash. He's crouched, muttering to himself, or so it seems, his voice strained but steady. Lena lowers her weapon slightly, her eyes narrowing, the memory of his stage confession clashing with his presence here, alive after the spire's chaos. You move closer, the earth damp underfoot, and realize he's not alone. He's been trailing the elites or evading them. You catch echoes of their words from moments ago, like a city broadcast replayed in your mind. Coyle's voice, rough and commanding, ordering Kalen to hunt Lena, to bring her down. Kalen's replies were cagey, steering them toward the lake's far shore, away from her path. You see it now. Kalen's been playing a deadly game, shadowing the elites to keep them off Lena's trail, his loyalty to her hidden beneath a mask of survival. Your chest tightens, the depth of his sacrifice sinking in, and you glance at Lena, who's piecing it together, her expression shifting from wariness to something softer, almost wounded. She steps forward, a vine snapping softly, and Colin's head jerks up, his eyes wide with fear, then relief. "Lena," he breathes, rising but swaying, the gambit days of dodging Kale's wrath, feigning allegiance, all to shield her. Lena hesitates, her crossbow still half raised, but her voice is low, urgent. "Why didn't you say something?" she asks, and Kalen's smile is faint, worn. "Didn't want you chasing me off," he says, and you feel the truth in it. A district dead a loaf of bread from a starving night now, a lifeline in this wilderness. You settle against a thorned trunk, its bark cool, and watch them talk, their voices hushed to evade the elite's ears. Kalen explains how he fell in with the elites after the spire, convincing them he could track Lena, all while leading them astray. You think back to the Crucible, his quiet strength, his confession to Dorian Vex, and see it connect, a vow rooted in gratitude, not just survival. Lena's eyes flicker with guilt, her fingers tightening on the crossbow, and you sense her struggle. Trust is a rare coin in the arena, but Kalen's actions are a shield she didn't seek but desperately needs. The wilderness feels closer now, the vines pressing in, and you notice Kalen's gash, shallow but festering. Slowing his steps, Lena kneels, inspecting it, her hands steady despite her grief over Syl. "We need to clean this," she says, and you see her shift into the hunter who fed Mira, now fighting for Kalen. They move to a trickling stream, its water glinting under the dusk, and you follow, the air heavy with the scent of moss and blood. Lena uses her flask to rinse the wound, her touch careful but firm, and Colin winces, his jaw set, but he doesn't pull away. "If I had to patch up a wound like that, I'd probably just pass out and call it strategy," you think. A faint grin easing the tension, but Lena's relentless, her focus a lifeline. They speak softly. Lena recounting Syl's fall, her voice catching as she describes the blooms, the salute. Kalen listens, his hand near hers, and you feel that thread between them, kindled in the district's square, strengthened by shared loss and quiet trust. He shares what he's seen the elites camp, their dwindling numbers, Kyle's growing rage, and you see Lena's mind working, her plan to strike again taking shape. The arena's dangers, Kyle, Lyra, the Overseer's traps loom like storm clouds, but this moment, this alliance feels like a spark, carrying the district's defiance into the fight. The sky darkens, the city's anthem droning as it projects the day's fallen sill. Vorn, their faces ghostly in the clouds. You watch Lena and Kalen huddle by the stream, their silhouettes sharp against the water, and feel the weight of their bond, a light in the arena's dark. Lena ties a makeshift bandage around Kalen's side, her pendant catching the moonlight. And you think of Soren's words, the city's not your enemy. The culling's far from over, but Kalen's hidden loyalty, Lena's fire, are a vow they'll fight. Together. The stream's faint gurgle fades as you trail Lena and Kalen through the thorned wilderness, the night's chill seeping through the vines. Lena supports Kalen, his arm over her shoulder, his steps faltering from the festering gash on his side. Her crossbow swings at her back, the carved flame pendant catching stray moonlight, a district spark against the arena's dark. You sense Lena's urgency, her hunter's mind balancing Kalen's survival with the threat of the elites. Their camp not far off. The air smells of damp moss and pine, and you keep pace, your boots silent on the soft earth, the weight of Syl's loss and Kalen's loyalty, a steady pulse in the silence. Lena's eyes catch a shadowed outcrop, half hidden by curling vines, and she guides Kalen toward it, finding a narrow cave carved into the stone. You slip inside, the air cooler, laced with the scent of wet rock and faint iron. The cave's walls are jagged, its floor uneven, but it's a haven. A rare pause in the culling's grind. Lena eases Colin against a smooth ledge, his breathing labored, his face pale under the dirt. You see the fever in his eyes, the gash's infection spreading, and feel Lena's fear, not for the arena, but for him, the boy who's shielded her since the spire's chaos. The Glade's blooms, Syl's song, linger in her gaze, now fixed on keeping Kalen alive. She kneels beside him, checking the makeshift bandage, her hands steady despite the stakes. "We need something stronger," she says, her voice low, and Kalen nods, his smile weak but warm. "Guess I'm not much of a baker out here," he murmurs, and you catch the echo of his stage confession, that district debt binding them tighter. Lena's lips twitch, almost a smile, and you feel their bond woven through the lottery, Syl's loss, now a lifeline in this stone refuge. You settle against the cave wall, the rock cold, and watch them. Two district souls finding truth amid the city's game. Lena digs into her pack, pulling out the last dried roots and her half-empty flask. She offers Colin a sip, her fingers steadying the flask, and you see him lean into the touch, subtle but telling. They talk, their voices soft, the cave amplifying each word. Callan asks about Syl, and Lena's voice catches as she describes the blooms, the salute, her grief a raw edge. You think back to her song, the way it stilled the glade, and feel its echo here, in the way she shares, just a little, with Kalen. He tells of the district, the bakery's warm mornings, the smell of rising dough, and you see Lena's eyes soften, her thoughts drifting to Mira, to home's fleeting warmth. The city's cameras are watching, you know, broadcasting every whisper to the elite crowds, but Kalen's words are a shield, crafting a moment of peace in the arena's storm. "If I were trying to charm the city, I'd probably just bake a loaf and hope they're hungry," you think, a faint grin breaking the tension. But Kalen's heart is his strength, and he wields it with care. Lena listens, her guard easing, and you feel the vulnerability between them, a trust built on shared defiance, shared scars. She admits she's no good at the city's game, winning their favor, and Kalen's hand brushes hers, his touch weak but sure. "You don't need their tricks," he says. "You've got fire." You see her pause, her hunter's instincts wrestling with trust, but she nods, their eyes meeting, a quiet truth sealing their pact. A distant rustle breaks the silence, and Lena tenses, her crossbow in hand, but it's only a small creature, its eyes glinting before it darts away. You exhale, the cave's dim light casting shadows across the walls, and watch Lena settle back, her body close to Kalen's for warmth. They fall silent, but the air is heavy with understanding, their bond a spark against the city's chains. You think of the salutes, Syl's blooms, Kalen's hidden trails, and know this refuge, this moment, is a rebellion in itself, a light the overseers didn't plan. The night deepens, the arena's dangers elites, traps, beasts waiting beyond the stone. Lena keeps watch, her eyes on the cave's mouth, while Kalen rests, his breathing uneven but steady. You lean against the wall, the rock grounding you, and feel the weight of their fight. The district's spark burning in this fleeting sanctuary, ready to flare again. The cave's stone refuge fades into shadow as you trail Lena and Kalen through the thorned wilderness, the night's chill biting through the vines. Lena's crossbow is raised, her carved flame pendant glinting faintly under a starless sky, while Kalen limps beside her, his feverish gash slowing his steps. The quiet truths shared in the cave have deepened their bond, forging a fragile trust. But the arena's cruelty spares no one. You sense Lena's alertness, her hunter's instincts honed by the dwindling tributes only a few remain. Coil and Lyra among them, and the overseer's next move looms like a storm. Your boots brush the mossy earth, your pulse quickening as the night feels too still. A trap coiled tight. A guttural snarl rips through the silence, low and unnatural, vibrating in your bones. Lena freezes, her eyes scanning the dark, and you feel the air shift, heavy with dread as more snarls join, a chorus of menace. "Move," Lena hisses, grabbing Kalen's arm, and you sprint with them, vines snapping underfoot, the wilderness blurring into a maze of thorns and shadow. The snarls grow closer, and you glance back, catching flashes of glowing eyes, beasts, city-crafted hunters, their hulking forms crashing through the vines. Their hides are spiked, their jaws lined with serrated fangs, and their eyes burn with a cold, engineered cunning, built to stalk, to terrify. Lena leads the way, her path twisting toward the iron spire, its jagged silhouette a distant beacon in the open field. You realize the overseers are driving the tributes, forcing a clash, these beasts their hounds. Kalen stumbles, his wound draining him, but Lena hauls him up, her voice sharp. "Stay with me." You feel her fear, not for herself but for him, and see their bond, forged in the cave, holding fast. The beasts are near, their snarls shaking the air, and you spot their forms, eyes like fallen tributes, a city's cruel jest to haunt the living. You burst into the field, the spire's iron gleaming under a shrouded moon. Lena and Kalen scramble onto its sloped base, their boots slipping on the slick metal. You follow, the surface cold, your heart pounding as the beasts circle below, their claws scraping sparks from the earth. Kale's already there, perched near the spire's peak, his blade drawn, his scarred face twisted with defiance and fear. You see Lena's eyes lock onto him, her crossbow raised. But the beasts are the immediate threat, their leaps grazing the spire's edge. One lunges, its fangs snapping near Kaelin's leg, and Lena fires a bolt, striking its flank. The beast roars but presses on, and you feel the arena's design, crafted to break even the fiercest. The night air is sharp, the scent of blood and iron mixing with the beast's acrid musk. You cling to the spire's base, watching Lena steady Kaelin, her bolts flying with deadly aim. Kael bellows, his voice raw, taunting Lena to face him. But she ignores him, her focus on the beasts. You notice one with eyes like Syl's, another like Zara's, and your stomach twists. The city's cruelty ablaze in the dark. If I were up against those things, I'd probably just toss them a snack and hope they're vegetarian. You think, a faint grin breaking the terror. But Lena's fire is unyielding, her crossbow a district vow against the city's monsters. Colin's strength wanes, his fever spiking, and you see Lena's desperation, her need to protect him clashing with survival's pull. She fires another bolt, felling a beast mid-leap, and you sense the city's crowds, cheering this midnight hunt. Kael moves, lunging for Kaelin, his blade flashing, but Lena's faster. Her bolt grazing his arm, forcing him back, the beasts howl, sensing blood, and you realize the Overseer's game a final stage for the strongest to collide. These creatures the whip. Lena and Kaelin hold the spire, their backs pressed together, her crossbow and his knife a thin defense. You see the exhaustion in her eyes, the grief for Syl, the weight of Kaelin's loyalty, but also that district spark, the salutes, the blooms, driving her on. The beasts circle, their snarls a relentless threat, and you know this night is a crucible, testing who can outlast the arena's hunters. The spire's cold iron anchors you, and you stay close, watching Lena fight, her resolve aflame in the starless dark, carrying her and Callan through the city's storm. The dawn's pale light fades as you linger near Lena and Kaelin in their vine-shrouded ravine, the city's serum slowly pulling Kaelin back from the fever's edge. Lena's crossbow rests beside her, the carved flame pendant catching the sun's first rays, a district spark against the arena's dark. The wound on her shoulder is crusted with blood, but her eyes are sharp, scanning the thorns for danger. Kaelin's breathing steadies, his strength returning, and you feel the fragile hope between them, forged through the desperate quest for medicine and the cave's quiet truths. The air smells of damp earth and sap, but the culling's pulse is unrelenting. The Overseer's ready to force the endgame with only a few tributes left, Kael and Thren among them. A distant horn wails, sharp and final, and you see Lena's jaw tighten, her mind counting Thren likely, given Kael's brutal strength. The arena feels tighter, the final clash looming, and you sense Lena's urgency, her need to move before the Overseers tighten their grip. She helps Colin stand, his side still tender but his resolve firm, and you follow them through the vines, their steps cautious but driven. The iron spire calls them back, a grim stage for the culling's end, and you feel its weight. The place where the chaos began now demanding a reckoning. The vines part, revealing the open field, the spire's jagged iron glinting under a clouded sky. Lena and Colin pause at the wilderness's edge, their eyes sweeping the terrain empty, too silent, like a snare set to snap. You settle beside them, the grass cool under your palms, and watch Lena knock a bolt, her hunter's instincts razor-sharp. Kaelin's knife is in hand, his stance steady despite his wound, and you see their bond woven through Syl's loss, Kaelin's loyalty, and the medicine's cost, now a shield in this final stand. A raw shout shatters the silence, and you spot Kael charging from behind the spire, his curved blade raised, his scarred face a mask of fury. He's alone, bloodied but unbroken. The last elite standing. Lena fires a bolt, but Coil weaves, his speed terrifying, and you feel the air crackle with the clash to come. "Run," Lena yells, and they sprint for the spire, scrambling up its sloped iron, their boots slipping on the slick surface. You climb with them, the metal cold, your heart pounding as Coil closes in, his blade a streak of deadly promise. At the spire's crest, Lena spins, her crossbow raised, and fires again, the bolt grazing Coil's shoulder. He roars, undeterred, and lunges, his blade slashing toward Kaelin. Lena shoves Kaelin aside, taking a shallow cut to her arm, and you wince, blood seeping through her sleeve. Kaelin counters, his knife nicking Kael's leg, but Kael's too strong, knocking Kaelin down with a brutal swing. You see Lena's desperation, her fire blazing as she knocks another bolt, her aim steady despite the pain. The city's cameras are watching, broadcasting this showdown to their roaring crowds, and the thought fuels your anger, mirroring Lena's defiance. Coil seizes Colin, pinning him in a chokehold, his blade at Colin's throat. "Drop the crossbow, or he's done." Coil snarls, his eyes wild, a tyrant cornered by his own game. Lena hesitates, her bolt trained on Coil, her mind racing. You feel the moment stretch, the arena's cruelty distilled into this standoff. And think of the salutes, Syl's blooms, Kaelin's hidden loyalty all converging here. Lena lowers her crossbow slightly, her voice calm but fierce. "Let him go, Kyle." You see Kaelin's eyes, urging her to shoot, but she holds, her hunter's patience a weapon. A low growl rumbles below, and you glance down, spotting the city's beasts circling the spire, their tribute-like eyes glowing in the dusk. The overseers are tightening the noose, ensuring a brutal finale. Kyle falters, his grip on Colin loosening as a beast leaps, its claws scraping the iron. Lena seizes the moment, firing a bolt into Coil's hand, forcing him to drop the blade. Colin breaks free, tackling Coil, and they grapple, sliding down the spire's side toward the beasts. You follow, the metal trembling, and watch Lena fire another bolt, striking Coil's leg, slowing him as the beasts close in. Kael fights, his strength ebbing, and you see the beasts overwhelm him, their fangs flashing. Lena and Colin scramble back to the crest, their faces grim, knowing the city craves this spectacle. You feel the weight of Coil's fall, not victory, but sorrow, a warrior shaped by the culling's fire, now consumed by it. If I were facing those beasts, I'd probably just offer them a pat and hope they're friendly. You think? A faint grin breaking the horror. But Lena's focus is absolute, her bolt trained on Coil, her mercy a quiet defiance. A horn wails, marking Kael's end, and you exhale, the arena's silence deafening. Lena and Colin cling to the spire, their breaths ragged, their bond a lifeline in the aftermath. The beasts retreat, the overseer's game shifting, and you know the end is near, but at what price? The sky darkens, the city's eyes still watching, and you stay close. Lena's fire, Kaelin's heart, carrying the district's spark into the final moments. The dawn's pale light fades as you linger near Lena and Callan in their vine-shrouded ravine, the city's serum slowly pulling Colin back from the fever's edge. Lena's crossbow rests beside her, the carved flame pendant catching the sun's first rays, a district spark against the arena's dark. The wound on her shoulder is crusted with blood, but her eyes are sharp, scanning the thorns for danger. Colin's breathing steadies, his strength returning, and you feel the fragile hope between them, forged through the desperate quest for medicine and the cave's quiet truths. The air smells of damp earth and sap, but the culling's pulse is unrelenting. The overseers ready to force the endgame with only a few tributes left Kale and Thren among them. A distant horn wails, sharp and final, and you see Lena's jaw tighten, her mind counting Thren. Likely, given Kale's brutal strength. The arena feels tighter, the final clash looming, and you sense Lena's urgency, her need to move before the overseers tighten their grip. She helps Kalen stand, his side still tender but his resolve firm, and you follow them through the vines, their steps cautious but driven. The iron spire calls them back, a grim stage for the culling's end, and you feel its weight, the place where the chaos began now demanding a reckoning. The vines part, revealing the open field, the spire's jagged iron glinting under a clouded sky. Lena and Kalen pause at the wilderness's edge, their eyes sweeping the terrain empty, too silent, like a snare set to snap. You settle beside them, the grass cool under your palms, and watch Lena knock a bolt. Her hunter's instincts razor sharp. Kalen's knife is in hand, his stance steady despite his wound, and you see their bond, woven through Syl's loss, Kalen's loyalty, and the medicine's cost, now a shield in this final stand. A raw shout shatters the silence, and you spot Kale charging from behind the spire, his curved blade raised, his scarred face a mask of fury. He's alone, bloodied but unbroken, the last elite standing. Lena fires a bolt, but Kale weaves, his speed terrifying, and you feel the air crackle with the clash to come. "Run," Lena yells, and they sprint for the spire, scrambling up its sloped iron, their boots slipping on the slick surface. You climb with them, the metal cold, your heart pounding as Kale closes in, his blade a streak of deadly promise. At the spire's crest, Lena spins, her crossbow raised, and fires again, the bolt grazing Kale's shoulder. He roars, undeterred, and lunges, his blade slashing toward Kalen. Lena shoves Kalen aside, taking a shallow cut to her arm, and you wince, blood seeping through her sleeve. Kalen counters, his knife nicking Kale's leg, but Kale's too strong, knocking Kalen down with a brutal swing. You see Lena's desperation, her fire blazing as she knocks another bolt, her aim steady despite the pain. The city's cameras are watching, broadcasting this showdown to their roaring crowds, and the thought fuels your anger, mirroring Lena's defiance. Kale seizes Kalen, pinning him in a chokehold, his blade at Kalen's throat. Drop the crossbow, or he's done, Kale snarls, his eyes wild, a tyrant cornered by his own game. Lena hesitates, her bolt trained on Kale, her mind racing. You feel the moment stretch, the arena's cruelty distilled into this standoff, and think of the salutes, Syl's blooms, Kalen's hidden loyalty all converging here. Lena lowers her crossbow slightly, her voice calm but fierce. "Let him go, Kyle." You see Kalen's eyes, urging her to shoot, but she holds, her hunter's patience a weapon. A low growl rumbles below, and you glance down, spotting the city's beasts circling the spire, their tribute-like eyes glowing in the dusk. The overseers are tightening the noose, ensuring a brutal finale. Call falters, his grip on Colin loosening as a beast leaps, its claws scraping the iron. Lena seizes the moment, firing a bolt into Call's hand, forcing him to drop the blade. Colin breaks free, tackling Kyle, and they grapple, sliding down the spire's side toward the beasts. You follow, the metal trembling, and watch Lena fire another bolt, striking Kyle's leg, slowing him as the beasts close in. Kale fights, his strength ebbing, and you see the beasts overwhelm him, their fangs flashing. Lena and Kalen scramble back to the crest, their faces grim, knowing the city craves this spectacle. You feel the weight of Kale's fall, Not victory, but sorrow, a warrior shaped by the Culling's fire, now consumed by it. If I were facing those beasts, I'd probably just offer them a pat and hope they're friendly, you think? A faint grin, breaking the horror. But Lena's focus is absolute, her bolt trained on Cole, her mercy a quiet defiance. A horn wails, marking Cale's end, and you exhale, the arena's silence deafening. Lena and Callan cling to the spire, their breaths ragged, their bond a lifeline in the aftermath. The beasts retreat, the overseer's game shifting, and you know the end is near. But at what price? The sky darkens, the city's eyes still watching, and you stay close. Lena's fire, Callan's heart, carrying the district's spark into the final moments. The iron spire's cold surface bites into your palms as you cling to its edge. The arena's silence roaring in your ears after Cale's horn. Lena and Callan huddle at the crest, their breaths jagged, their bodies scarred but unbroken. The city's beasts have vanished into the thorned wilderness, their snarls a fading echo, but the sky above is heavy with storm clouds, the overseer's cameras still watching, craving the Culling's end. Lena's crossbow rests beside her, the carved flame pendant glinting faintly, a district spark that refuses to die. Callan's arm steadies her, his wound bandaged but his strength fragile. And you feel their bond forged through the cave, the medicine's quest, and Cole's brutal stand. Now a lifeline in this final moment. The air smells of blood and damp earth. The field around the spire strewn with the Culling's marks, shattered bolts, churned grass, the ghosts of fallen tributes. You glance at Lena, her eyes scanning the horizon, her hunter's instincts braced for the overseer's next move. Callan's hand rests near hers, his touch a quiet anchor. And you see their trust, deeper than survival, rooted in the district's dust. The arena feels like a closing fist, the world shrinking to this iron peak. And you know the city demands one champion, one soul to crown. But something in Lena's gaze, fierce and unyielding, signals she's done with their rules. Various Holt's voice thunders from the sky. Cold as iron, contenders, the prior decree is void. Only one may claim victory. The words strike like a blade, slashing through the fragile hope of their shared survival. Lena's face hardens, her jaw set, while Callan's hand tightens, his eyes searching hers. You think back to the cave, his confession to Dorian, his hidden trails, and know he'd fall for her, just as she risked all for his medicine. The city's betrayal hangs heavy, a reminder of Soren's cryptic words, the city's not your enemy, and you feel the district's spark flare, ready to burn. Lena stands, her crossbow in hand, and you see her mind ignite, her fire raging against the overseer's trap. No, she says, her voice low but searing, and you feel the weight of that word, a rebellion carved in dust. Callan looks at her, confusion yielding to resolve, and you sense their shared defiance, a spark that could shatter the city's game. Lena reaches into her pack, pulling a handful of duskberries, dark, glossy, venomous, gathered from the arena's vines days ago. You hold your breath, the berries shimmering in her palm, their poison a silent challenge to the city's will. She offers half to Colin, her eyes locked on his, a silent vow forming. Together, she says, and he nods, his face steady, his loyalty a district oath. You watch them stand as one, the berries raised, and feel the arena's pulse halt, the overseer's cameras zooming in, the city's crowds leaning forward. On three, Lena whispers, and you feel the moment stretch, the world hinging on their act. If I were the overseers, I'd be scrambling to rewrite the rulebook right about now. You think, a faint grin breaking the tension, but Lena and Callan are resolute. their defiance a fire that could outshine the spire's iron. 1. Lena counts, her voice clear, the berries inches from her lips. Callan mirrors her, his hand firm despite his wounds. You think of the lottery, her stand for Mira, the salutes, Sill's blooms, and see it all converge. A rebellion not of blades, but of will. 2, she says, and you feel the city's panic, the overseer's calculations crumbling. The sky is silent, the clouds heavy, and you know this is no mere game. It's a spark that could kindle the districts, a challenge to the city's chains. Before 3, Varius's voice cuts through, frantic. Halt, halt. Both contenders are crowned. The words erupt across the arena, and you exhale, your heart pounding as Lena and Callan lower their hands, the berries unclaimed. The city's cheers are faint, drowned by the wind, but you feel the shift, the overseers bending under their defiance. Lena drops the berries, crushing them under her boot, and you see her eyes, fierce but wary, knowing this victory carries a shadow. Callan pulls her close, his relief a quiet tide, and you feel their bond, unbreakable, a light in the arena's dark. A city craft appears, its hum shaking the air, and you watch Lena and Callan climb aboard. Their hands still near. The spire shrinks below, the arena's scars fading as the craft ascends. You stay close, the metal floor cold, and see Lena's face, her fire tempered by exhaustion. Her thoughts turning to the city's price. The berries were a gambit, a rebellion the districts will see, and you think of the salutes, Sill's song, and know this moment will echo beyond the arena. For now they live. Their spark, a flame that could reshape the dust. The city craft's hum softens as you step into the gleaming halls of the spire's summit, a sterile contrast to the arena's thorned chaos. Lena and Callan stand side by side, their hands no longer touching. The duskberry's defiance still burning in their eyes. Lena's carved flame pendant, scuffed by the Culling's trials, catches the artificial light, a district spark against the city's cold glow. The air smells of antiseptic and faint lavender, a veneer over the power that watches Varius Holt, the overseer, absent but ever present. You sense Lena's wariness, her hunter's instincts bristling under the city's gaze, while Callan, his bandaged side tender, carries a guarded calm, his loyalty to her unshaken, the arena's scars Sill's loss. Coils fall, the beast's terror linger in their silence, but the berries have shifted the game, a rebellion the city can't erase. You follow them through polished corridors, past city aides in shimmering robes who tend their wounds with practiced smiles. Lena's shoulder cut is stitched, her arm bandaged, but her eyes stay sharp, scanning for traps. Callan's fever is gone, the serum's work complete, but his steps are heavy, like he feels the city's chains tightening. Vera Solis sweeps in, her silver curls pristine, chattering about triumph ceremonies and adoring crowds. Lena's gaze is distant, her mind on the districts, the salutes, the spark she and Callan kindled. You think back to the spire, their hands raised with the berries, and know the city's elite saw more than a game. They saw a fire that could spread. Gavin meets them in a private chamber, his flask tucked away, his eyes clearer than before. "You've stirred a hornet's nest," he says, his voice low, glancing at the mirrored walls as if they listen. The berries were a slap they won't forget. Lena's jaw tightens, her fire flaring, while Callan's hand hovers near hers, a silent tether. Gavin urges them play the devoted pair, frame the berries as passion, not revolt. You see Lena's resistance, her survival instinct clashing with the need to shield Mira, her family, and Kalen. Kalen nods, his face a mask, but you catch the ache in his eyes, knowing Lena's heart is a battlefield, not a stage. The triumph ceremony unfolds in a blaze of city excess silver banners, thundering crowds. Dorian Vex's voice echoing through the amphitheater. You stand in the shadows, the stage's lights blinding, as Lena and Kalen are crowned, their obsidian circlets heavy with the city's expectations. Lena's gown, another Soren creation, ripples like molten iron. But her smile is tight, her eyes searching for Holt's unseen gaze. Kalen's hand stays near hers, his warmth genuine. And you feel their bond, strained but enduring, a light against the city's dark. The crowd chants Ember of the Dust, but you know it's not just Lena, it's the spark of defiance, carried from Sill's blooms to the berry's venom. The journey back to the district is quieter, the city's dazzle fading into the gray horizon of home. You sit across from Lena and Callan in a plush transport, the scent of roasted game and wine clashing with the coal dust in your memory. Lena stares out the window, her braid loose, her thoughts on Mira, Torin, and the district's watching. Callan tries to speak, his voice soft, asking about the mines, but her replies are short, her mind on the city's shadow. You think of the cave, their shared truths, and see the distance now, not from coldness, but from the weight of what's next. If I were on this ride, I'd probably eat all the fancy food and pretend the city's just a bad dream, you think, a faint grin breaking the tension. But Lena and Kalen bear heavier loads. Gavin joins them, his words blunt. Keep the act tight, or it's Mira, your kin, everyone. Lena's eyes flash, her fire defiant, but she nods, knowing the stakes. Kalen's hand steadies on the table, his loyalty a quiet strength. And you feel the arena's shadow stretching beyond its vines, into the districts, into the future. The transport slows, the district's fence looming through the window, and you see Lena brace herself. Her role as champion a new cage. Callan stands beside her, his gaze on her, and you know their defiance, their bond, will carry them for now. The district's platform is packed. Mira's blonde hair a beacon as she rushes to Lena, their embrace fierce. You watch from the edge, the coal dust sharp in the air, the crowd's cheers laced with awe and unease. Lena holds Mira, her eyes meeting Torin's over her sister's shoulder, a flicker of guilt and resolve. Colin stands apart, his smile for the crowd. But you see the ache in him, the debt he's repaid but can't voice, the spark of the berries, the salutes. Sill's song burns in this moment, a promise of something greater, something the city can't chain. The transport's hum fades as you linger on the district's platform, the crowd's cheers softening into a murmur, like wind through the mines. Lena and Kalen stand together, their silhouettes sharp against the gray dusk. Their victory, a fragile flame in the district's shadow. The air carries the bite of coal dust, grounding you in this place of grit and hope, where the berry's defiance has sown a seed, quiet but growing. You watch Lena's hand rest on Mira's shoulder, her eyes bearing the arena's weight. Sill's blooms, Callan's loyalty, the city's looming gaze. Callan's eyes linger on her, his heart a steady offering. And you feel their bond. Not just devotion, but a shared fire, a spark that could rally the districts. The platform clears, families fading into the dust, their faces marked by wonder and fear. You step closer, the gravel soft underfoot, and let the moment settle, its echoes reaching beyond the fence, to distant cliffs, to the city's cold spires. Lena's pendant, polished now, catches the fading light, a symbol of what's to come, The arena's scars blur, but its truths endure defiance, sacrifice, the will to burn through the dark. You take a breath, the air heavy, and feel the story's weight lift, leaving a promise of tomorrow, where Lena and Kaelin will face new fights. Their spark, a light for those watching, waiting. As the dusk deepens, you turn away, the district's pulse a steady rhythm, carrying you from the arena's thorns to this quiet close. Their fight, their fire, lives on, and you carry it with you, a tale woven, a spark kindled.